Hi, my friends. Welcome to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, your host, and also an indie author. I'm thrilled you're joining me today for another fun interview with a passionate author. We're going to kick off this show with an exciting reading, so let's get started.
Well, hello. I'm Angela Legh, the author of the Bella Santini Chronicles. It is a children's fairy tale series aimed at ages 8 to 12. It's an action adventure series, so it appeals to both boys and girls. I will start in with book 1, Bella Santini in the Land of Everlasting Change, and this is the first chapter. Stupid camping trip, Bella Santini muttered as she left the campfire to go to sleep. Stupid parents for making me go on this stupid camping trip. She stubbed her toe on a rock and let out a small yelp. Bella, her mother called from the fire where she was sitting with Bella's dad. Are you all right? Fine, Mom, Bella lied, hobbling slightly as she made her way to her little private tent. Stupid rock on this stupid camping trip, she continued under her breath. At 14, Bella was an ordinary-looking girl with long, wavy brown hair with a red woven hint. Her smile was quick and bright like a ray of sunshine. Her skin always pale and never tanned. Bella's most noticeable thing were her eyes, an unusual shade of sea green, the lightest color in the curl of an ocean wave at the exact moment when the wave crests and the sun shines through. She lived in an ordinary house with her parents and went to an ordinary school with other ordinary children. Even her school life was ordinary. She never got into trouble, but she was never the star pupil. She brought home average, ordinary grades. But there was one subject that Bella excelled in, art class. There, it didn't matter if the teacher asked the class to paint a bowl of fruit or a still portrait. Bella could capture the subject in a way that made it seem that you could reach into the painting itself and touch it. Now, with classes over, Bella had been looking forward to spending the summer inside, happily painting all day without interruption. But on the first day of summer, her parents had loaded her up in the car without warning, ignoring her protests, telling her they were taking her on a fun family trip into the wilderness. But I wanted to spend this time painting, Bella protested from the back seat of the car. Oh, Bella, there will be plenty of time for that when you get back. It wasn't fair they were making her go on this trip. She was old enough to take care of herself. She just wanted to stay home, paint, and be with her friends. Bella thought with a sigh, remembering how upset her father had been. Sweetie, I know you have plans, but this weekend is family time, and I want you to come with an open mind. You just might like it. Bella rolled her eyes. She was sure this trip was going to be a waste of her time. Unfortunately, it was clear she had no choice in the matter. Opening her tent flap, Bella crawled in, leaving her dress on, feeling too agitated to switch into pajamas. She snuggled into her sleeping bag, laying her head on the pillow. Her mind whirled as she closed her eyes, thinking about the lovely things she saw today, mixed with the irritation her parents had forced her to come on this stupid camping trip. The trees and flowers she noticed during the car ride had been beautiful, and she couldn't wait to paint them all. But on the other hand, she had to wait till she got home to paint anything, since her stupid parents had neglected to pack any of her art supplies. Not like they listened to what I wanted to do anyway, she muttered as she fell asleep. She was awakened in the middle of the night by a curious sound, tinkling like bells, though it sounded slightly muffled, as if a soft fabric had been padded around the bells. Putting it out of her mind, she attempted to go back to sleep. Several minutes later, the sound repeated. Bella ignored it, once again trying to fall asleep. She tossed and turned. But after another repetition of the sound, she decided to investigate. Bells were not an usual noise expected in the forest, she thought. Silently, she opened her tent flap and peered into the darkness. The campfire had been put out, and Bella could hear her dad snoring like a giant bear in the next tent. Her eyes swept the forest, not seeing anything. Then, out of the corner of her eyes, Bella spied a fleeting light, softly dancing like a leaf on the warm breeze, weaving into a row of trees to her left. A firefly, she thought, as she stepped onto the soft carpet of pine needles, releasing the fresh scent of pine into the air. Following the darting light, she passed through trees, weaving along a path established by the firefly. Twisting and turning, the firefly's path wound through the dense undergrowth of the forest. The moon softly illuminated the way, suddenly darkening when the clouds shifted in the sky, opening again to a soft radiance that lit her path. Without warning, the clouds covered the moon. The firefly flitted around a turn and seemed to disappear. Bella looked around in the darkness and could not find evidence of the firefly, nor could she find landmarks to guide her back to her tent. The night around her was suddenly much more frightening. How was she going to find her way back to the camp? Mom? Dad? Anyone? She called out. Help me, I'm lost. She waited, listening, but there was no response. Either she was too far away, or her parents were too sound asleep to hear her. Bella's stomach dropped. Her breathing became shallow as fear crept into her senses. Panicking slightly, she twirled around, looking in vain for an easy way back. She had no idea from which direction she had come, but seeing one path slightly lit by moonlight, she followed it, hoping it was the way back to her tent. Once or twice she stubbed her toes on protruding roots or rocks, but still she stumbled on, hoping that this path would return her to her campsite. After a long time, the trail opened into a meadow. The moon reappeared from behind the clouds. As the soft, gentle rays revealed the space before her, Bella halted and took in a breath, stunned by the ethereal scene. Under the soft moonlight, meadow was filled with what seemed to be a million fireflies gently dancing, weaving a web of twinkling illumination that stretched into the distance. The faraway firefly lights were dulled by the mist, twinkling like Christmas lights seen through the rain. The soft sheen of the moonglow enhanced the light of the fireflies. Struggling to breathe, Bella tried to memorize the scene. A meadow filled with dancing lights. It would make a stunningly beautiful, ethereal painting. Excitement filled her as her creativity sparked. She couldn't wait to get home and paint, but she was entranced. She had to stay and watch what happened next. She watched as each firefly settled into the grass, almost hidden as they slowly lowered into the thick tufts of grass, though she could see that their lights softly glowed. How could insects make such a perfect circle? She wondered. Is this something they do instinctually, like salmon or turtles returning to where they're born? She took a careful step forward to get a better look. Something was not right about these fireflies. For one thing, fireflies didn't have delicate little hands or faces or human-like bodies. Bella gasped, rubbing her eyes in disbelief. It wasn't fireflies. It couldn't be. Fireflies didn't wear dresses and have large, iridescent, multicolored wings, nor could they dance and sing the way these creatures could. They were fairies, a whole circle of tiny, delicate fairies moving gracefully to a song that sounded like it was played by a dozen flutes.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. Today we have the incredible Miss Angela with us. Hi, Madame. How are you?
I am so good. How are you?
I am so happy to have you. You have me memorized with this reading, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? What's wrong with this poor child? So we're going to jump right into the book. Let's get started. Tell us about it. You said this is a fairy tale. Is it a series?
It is a series. Today I read from book 1, the first chapter, and book 2 will be coming out in about 6 weeks. And book 3 is in the illustration phase. So
Very, very
probably,
nice.
yeah, probably will be released by the end of the year.
So tell us, what is this series about and where did it come from?
So the series traces the adventures of Bella Santini, a 14-year-old human girl who discovers she basically is taken to the fairy realm. And over time, she discovers that all is not as it seems, and she has fairy blood in her. And further revelations, book 2, will make it even more intriguing. So basically, the series tracks Bella as she discovers who she is and comes to term with who she is, and then starts to fulfill her destiny.
That is awesome. How did you come up with this series?
You know, I started writing this little fairy tale for my friend's daughter. She was 7 years old at the time. She's 10 now. And I realized that the story kept growing, and it kept growing and growing. And about a few months into writing, this was, I was working full time. I was just writing when I had moments. And I realized about 6 months in that what I was doing was building my life lessons into the book, because I learned in my lifetime that repressing feelings can have some very big consequences. So the lessons about feelings and facing all of our feelings are woven into the storyline. It's not like telling kids, well, you have to feel your feelings. What it does is, in this book that I am talking about, Bella Santini in the Land of Everlasting Change, in one of the chapters, Bella ends up going from the fairyland into an alternate dimension. And that dimension is peopled by emotions. So they're not visible, and you can run while you're walking down a hallway, or in the case of the fairies, they're flying down a hallway, they can run into an emotion. Unless they have the tools for managing getting through an emotion, they could get bogged down in that emotion. So just like in real life, without the tools for dealing with an emotion, you can get bogged down in it. I do teach a few tools in book 1, some more in book 2, some more in book 3.
That is such a great way to introduce children to really practical yet really hard lessons without being in their face, like you said, because no child wants to have somebody judging them. They don't want so they don't want a lesson. They officially feel like this is not school. I don't want to read for learning. I just want to have some fun.
Yeah. So it's engaging and entertaining, and they're taking in information that will help them navigate their own lives.
It's a great way to teach through parables because children usually understand it more. When you started writing, when did you realize, okay, I'm making this into a series?
Well, I finished book 1. When I found a publisher for it, he said 300 and some pages is way too much. And I had already started writing book 2 because the story hadn't finished for me yet. So I was, I don't know, 2,100 words into book 2. And the publisher said, you need to take book 1 and split it into 2, so that you already now have book 1, book 2, and you're working on book 3, which makes sense. They're action adventure chapter books, and they're designed for the parents to read to the kid, kind of like when my son was young, I read him the Harry Potter series. And that was a wonderful thing where we both got into the adventure of it and the magic of it. With my books, even though they're half the size of Harry Potter books, so they're not quite as thick as Harry Potter. They will take the adults and child into the adventure and teach concepts that would benefit both the adult and the child. Over time, what I decided to do is I added in the front of the book a little parent's guide that delves into a deeper understanding of the concepts being put forth in terms of the tools for managing emotion and shifting perspectives. There's a promise from the parent to the child that they will honor the child's emotions and they will honor the child for who they are. And the child makes a promise to the parent that they will honor their own emotions and honor their parents' emotions. We all have moments where we need to just be with our emotion and not have someone telling us, well, just be happy.
That is such a great idea to have an agreement for both inside a book. Because sometimes that communication alone, coming from an outside perspective, opens doors tremendously.
The real hope for me is that because one of the things in the parent's guide that I say is when you talk to your kid about bullying or child abandonment or adoption, share with them stories from your childhood. Open yourself up and be vulnerable and tell them the things that bothered you when you were a child, because that opens up a depth to the conversation that isn't readily available. I just remember, being little and thinking my mom was perfect and she didn't never have any problems. She did everything perfect. When a parent can be open that vulnerability with a child, it creates a level of communication that wasn't available prior.
I love your concept of being able to be open and vulnerable because sometimes that's the part that most kids go in. My parents are perfect and they don't understand. And they
Yeah.
just shut down. So I think that's such a beautiful way of doing it.
And then at the back of the book, there's book club questions that were never, ever intended for book clubs. They're intended for the parent and child to discuss the concepts in the book. Really, my books are about deepening the connection between the parent and child and opening some communication that maybe wasn't possible before.
You mentioned for the parents to read it. Can the children read them themselves? Because you said you're looking
Yes.
around 10. So what
Yeah.
happens if a child is just like, I don't need my parents to read it. I'm doing this on my own. What
They
would you
can
say?
absolutely read it themselves. And if they want, they can share it with their parent later on and say, hey, I read this book and it was great. Here, mom, you read it.
I like that. That was one of the things I'm like, okay, are we looking at something that the parents have to be engaged enough, but or can the children just jump right in and still get the message? What do you think?
Children have within them an innate intelligence. They will get it without having their parents read to them. Though the point of, the beginning and end of the book is to really establish and deepen the connection between parent and child.
I like the connection you're making, and I like the fact that you have created a book that parents can utilize as a tool. So, how long have you been writing for?
I only started writing about 3 years ago. What happened was in 2017, a wildfire in Northern California destroyed my home and 5,000 other homes. That wildfire caused me to question everything about everything. And I took a big leap of faith. I left a toxic marriage. I quit my job. I decided to pursue writing.
You
So,
went all out. I mean, we're dropping
yeah.
everything. We're going marriage, house, job. We're going to start over. How was the transition to it? Because you are
Mm.
glowing, you're excited, you're loving what you do. Was it
It
worth it?
was, Yeah, leaving the marriage was the hardest thing I've ever done. Both of us contributed to the toxicity of the marriage. Me, it was because when I was a kid, I learned to repress anger. When you repress a feeling, you're carrying it around with you. I equate it to having it in a backpack. And what happens is the feeling will pop out when you least expect it, or it can become a load that is so heavy that it breaks you. And so by repressing anger, I ended up in a marriage to a man who learned as a youth that anger was the way to deal with everything. And so it was a very toxic combination of, because I rejected anger in him. And I'm not blaming him for what he did, and I'm not blaming me, but I'm recognizing that that was a very toxic situation. But I stayed in that situation for a long time because I didn't want to hurt him. It took the fire for me to realize that by staying and being so resistant to his anger, I was hurting him and I was hurting myself. And so I had to choose myself for the first time in my life.
Madam, that is a huge leap of faith. And I am so happy you're healthy, you're happy, and you're living your passion and now sharing it with the world. Because you have taken your test and turned it into a testimony, because you took all of this learning and turned it into something that can be so useful for our kids.
Through the books, not only do I give emotional management tools, but I teach them about getting out of victim behavior and the importance of taking responsibility for how you're feeling, not for what someone's doing, and the importance of self-love, because everything starts with self-love.
That is beautiful. I'm so excited. Yes. So, Madam, since we're talking advice, what advice would you give an up and coming artist, especially an up and coming author?
Oh gosh, there is so much advice out there, and there are so many people telling you, you have to do it this way. This is the way I did it, and this is the way I got a New York Times bestseller. What we really need to do is listen to our own heart and trust in our own soul to guide us, knowing that what worked for someone else may not be the way it's going to work for you. So trust the process, trust your path, trust yourself, love yourself, and it's going to come together.
That's a amazing advice for all of our listeners, something to truly, truly remember. So, Madam, I could talk to you forever. Like, this is such a fun conversation. Tell us, where can we find the book? Where can we find you? Where can our listeners learn more about it?
Well, thank you. The book Bella Santini in the Land of Everlasting Change is available on Amazon.com. The reality is Amazon sells 80% of the books in the world. And so everybody's got to be on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. Initially, when I put the first book out, I didn't have the parent's guide and I didn't have the promise in it. So there's edition 1 that was released in December of 2020, and edition 2 released in June of 2021. If you're going to buy it, get edition 2, the one released in June of 2021. I've asked Amazon to remove the sales of the first one, but they're slow in doing that. So if you search for Bella Santini on Amazon, just be sure you click on the one that says June of 2021, and you'll get the one with all the benefits in it. To find me, AngelaLegh.com. So it's Angela, Legh, AngelaLegh.com. Interestingly enough, this morning was on a site designing backpacks and hoodie sweatshirts with images from the books. So I'll be having those available on my website probably in a few weeks.
That is exciting. So people can get some bookware from the books, and everybody loves bookware. So that is super awesome. So, madam, before you leave us, we're going to switch gears very quickly, and we're going to go into our lightning round. They're super easy questions. Don't think too hard on it. Let's see how you do.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Nice. Cats or dogs?
Both.
Okay, not bad. Summer or winter?
Can I pick fall instead?
You can do that. That's fine. I'm a fall kind of person too, so I understand. Sweet or sour?
Sweet.
Nice. So here's our last one, a little bit different. Let's see how you do with this one. If you had a warning label, what would it be?
Caution. Perhaps too sweet.
Can you truly be too sweet? Honestly, that is a good one. It has been a pleasure to have you. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
Just that love truly is the answer for everything. And even when it seems like love can't possibly fix a situation, it can. In my case, I had to remove myself from the battleground in order to be able to love in the unconditional way that was needed.
That is so, so powerful. To all of our listeners, amazing, amazing advice. Love yourself. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so happy to have you. To our listeners, go ahead, check out Miss Angela, check out edition 2 of the book. Make sure you give us a like, share this episode with your friends. You know, it's better if we grow together. If you are enjoying the podcast and you wanted to continue to support us, check out my Patreon account is author DC Gomez. Your support will help to continue to have amazing author like Miss Angela on the show. And I'll be back next week with another brand new author that is doing amazing things. So hope to see you guys here. Bye, everyone.